Yul Brynner stood motionless in the rain-soaked darkness outside Chateau Marmont's penthouse suite, listening to the encrypted radio frequencies crackling through his modified Zenith receiver while calculating the exact moment when Hollywood's most dangerous secret would either be preserved or catastrophically exposed. November 1961, Los Angeles, 11:27 at night, when Soviet assassins moved through American shadows like cancer through healthy tissue, and the man the world knew as an actor was about to demonstrate why the CIA had never officially recruited him but had never officially released him either. If you're fascinated by untold stories of Yul Brynner's most classified encounters beyond the silver screen, subscribe to Yul Brynner Untold Legacy for more hidden moments where Hollywood glamour concealed deadly Cold War operations. File designation, MONARCH-7, classification Eyes Only, subject, asset designation, The King, Hollywood operative with specialized linguistics and psychological warfare capabilities developed during World War II resistance operations. Current status, active monitoring of Soviet infiltration, attempts targeting entertainment industry influence operations, and high-value political assassination plots. The 64th floor penthouse suite existed in that peculiar space between luxury and isolation that attracted both celebrities seeking privacy and foreign agents requiring operational security. Rain hammered against floor-to-ceiling windows like machine gun fire, while inside the apartment, a single lamp cast shadows that moved like living things across expensive furniture and government-issue surveillance equipment that officially didn't exist. Viktor Sokolov sat at the mahogany desk, his weathered hands assembling a customized Makarov pistol with the mechanical precision of someone who had performed the same ritual hundreds of times in dozens of countries where American interests conflicted with Soviet objectives. At 45, he remained one of Moscow's most reliable wet work specialists, a man whose kills were so clean that most appeared to be accidents or natural deaths rather than state-sponsored eliminations. His target tomorrow night would be Senator Robert Harper, chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee and architect of America's most aggressive anti-communist legislation. Harper would be attending the premiere of Lawrence of Arabia at the Chinese Theater, surrounded by Hollywood celebrities and minimal security that assumed artistic events posed no serious threats to national security figures. The assassination would be blamed on a deranged fan or jealous rival, creating chaos in Washington while eliminating one of Moscow's most effective opponents. Sokolov had spent 3 months establishing his cover as a freelance photographer, gaining access to industry events and mapping security protocols with the patience of a professional killer who understood that haste led to exposure, and exposure led to execution. But tonight, something had gone wrong with his communication schedule. The coded radio transmissions from his control officer had ceased abruptly 6 hours earlier, replaced by static that suggested either equipment failure or active jamming by American counterintelligence assets who had discovered his presence. Sokolov checked his Rolex, a genuine Swiss timepiece that served dual purposes as status symbol and timing device for coordinated operations. 11:30. His backup contact protocol required him to monitor emergency frequencies until midnight, then proceed with the mission regardless of communication status if no abort signal was received. That's when the lights went out. Not gradually, not with the flicker that suggested electrical problems, but instantly and completely, plunging the luxurious suite into darkness so absolute that Sokolov's enhanced night vision couldn't penetrate it. Emergency training kicked in immediately, hand moving toward the assembled Makarov, body shifting into defensive position, breathing slowing to reduce noise signature. The voice that emerged from the darkness carried the controlled authority of someone accustomed to commanding dangerous men in impossible situations. Dobroye utro, Viktor Mikhailovich Sokolov. Good morning. Spoken in perfect Russian, with the slight Moscow accent that suggested not just fluency but intimate familiarity with Soviet intelligence protocols. Sokolov's blood turned to ice as he recognized that his operational security had been completely compromised by someone who knew not just his mission, but his true identity. "Who are you?" Sokolov replied in English, hoping to maintain his photographer cover despite the obvious futility of deception. "Someone who remembers Stalingrad," came the response, still in Russian. Someone who listened to Moscow radio transmissions from underground bunkers while you were learning to kill for the motherland. Someone who knows that your real name is Viktor Sokolov, born Leningrad 1916, recruited by 4th Directorate 1941. Current assignment: eliminate Senator Harper using cover identity, Marcus Volkov, freelance photographer. The accuracy of the intelligence was terrifying because it suggested resources and access that should have been impossible for any American operative to possess. Sokolov's hand closed around the Makarov's grip, but he didn't draw the weapon yet. "Your accent," Sokolov said carefully, switching to Russian. "You're not American intelligence. KGB, are you here to abort the mission?" A sound like soft laughter emerged from the shadows, but without warmth or humor. "I'm something much more dangerous than KGB, Victor. I'm someone who remembers what loyalty actually means, and why some wars never really end." That's when Yul Brynner stepped into the dim light, filtering through rain-streaked windows, his silhouette creating a presence that seemed to fill the entire room, despite his compact frame. He moved with the controlled precision of someone who had learned stealth in circumstances where detection meant death, his dark clothes making him nearly invisible against the luxurious furnishings. In his left hand, he carried a modified radio receiver that was clearly picking up encrypted transmissions. In his right hand, nothing. But his posture suggested that weapons were unnecessary for handling the current situation. "Yul Brynner," Sokolov said, recognition dawning with growing confusion. "The actor. What are you doing here?" "Acting," Yul replied with deadly calm. "Playing the role of someone who prevents Soviet assassinations on American soil. It's a part I've been rehearsing for 20 years. He moved closer, each step carrying the measured authority that had made Chris Adams such a compelling character. But this was no performance for cameras or audiences. "Your mission is terminated, Victor. Not suspended, not postponed. Terminated. You will pack your equipment, leave Los Angeles tonight, and never return to American soil. Your photographer cover is blown, your target is protected, and your extraction routes are all under surveillance." Sokolov's training screamed at him to draw his weapon and eliminate this unexpected threat, but something in Yul's demeanor suggested that such action would be both futile and fatal. The actor moved with the confidence of someone who had faced more dangerous opponents than aging Soviet assassins. "You can't stop me," Sokolov said, though his voice carried less conviction than his words suggested. "I have backup plans, alternative approaches, resources you can't imagine." Yul smiled, the first expression of genuine emotion since entering the suite, but it carried no warmth whatsoever. "Viktor Mikhailovich, your backup plan involves the emergency cache hidden in Griffith Observatory. Your alternative approach requires the sniper rifle concealed in a camera case at the Ambassador Hotel. Your resources include exactly $3,000 in various currencies, 2 false passports, and a contact at the Soviet consulate in San Francisco who was arrested by the FBI approximately 6 hours ago." The comprehensive knowledge of his operational details hit Sokolov like physical blows, each revelation demonstrating that his mission had been compromised from the beginning. But worse than exposure was the growing realization that he was dealing with someone whose capabilities exceeded standard American counterintelligence operations. "How?" Sokolov whispered. "Because Hollywood isn't just entertainment, Victor. It's America's most sophisticated influence operation. And some of us who work in it remember that freedom isn't free, democracy isn't guaranteed, and sometimes the price of protecting both requires methods that official agencies can't acknowledge." Yul moved to the window, gazing out at the rain-soaked city lights while keeping Sokolov in his peripheral vision. "I spent 3 years monitoring German radio frequencies from French resistance hideouts, learning to decode messages that meant the difference between successful operations and mass executions. I understand how intelligence networks function, how assassination plots develop, how foreign agents operate in civilian environments." He turned back toward Sokolov, his dark eyes carrying the weight of experiences that had nothing to do with stage performances or film sets. When Moscow decided to target Senator Harper, they made 2 critical errors. First, they assumed American security was limited to official government agencies. Second, they forgot that some of us who work in entertainment have other qualifications that don't appear in our official biographies. Sokolov understood that he was facing something he had never encountered in 20 years of international operations. A hidden asset whose existence wasn't recorded in any intelligence file, whose capabilities weren't cataloged by any government agency, whose loyalty was absolute but entirely voluntary. "What do you want?" Sokolov asked finally. "Your immediate departure from American territory," Yul replied immediately. "Your word as a professional that this mission ends tonight. Your understanding that any future Soviet operations targeting American officials through entertainment industry access will be met with responses that your government won't enjoy experiencing." The threat was delivered with such quiet certainty that Sokolov found himself believing it completely. This wasn't bluster or intimidation. It was a professional assessment of consequences that would follow any attempt to continue the operation. "And if I refuse?" Yul's expression didn't change, but something shifted in the atmosphere of the room, as if the temperature had dropped several degrees without any change in the heating system. "Then you'll discover why the CIA has never officially recruited me, Viktor. Because officially recruited assets have limitations, restrictions, oversight requirements that prevent them from taking necessary actions when American interests are threatened by foreign operations." The implication was clear and terrifying. Sokolov was facing someone who operated outside normal intelligence protocols, someone whose response to Soviet assassination attempts wouldn't be constrained by diplomatic considerations or legal oversight. "I need proof that you can deliver on these threats," Sokolov said, though his voice carried less defiance than professional curiosity about his opponent's actual capabilities. Yul reached into his jacket and produced a photograph, high-quality surveillance image showing Sokolov entering the Chateau Marmont 3 days earlier, carrying the camera case that contained his disassembled rifle. The photo included timestamps, location coordinates, and technical details that suggested sophisticated surveillance capabilities. "Your every movement since arriving in Los Angeles has been documented," Yul said quietly. "Your communications with Moscow have been monitored. Your backup contacts have been identified. Your mission exists entirely within an environment controlled by people you never knew were watching." He returned the photograph to his jacket with the same precise movement he had used to produce it. "The choice is simple, Viktor. Leave alive tonight, or remain here permanently in circumstances that your government won't be able to explain or avenge. Some secrets stay buried because the people who know them understand that exposure serves no useful purpose." Sokolov looked around the luxurious suite that had seemed like perfect operational security just hours earlier, now understanding that it had actually been a carefully constructed trap that he had entered willingly. The assassination mission had been doomed from the moment Moscow had decided to target an American official through entertainment industry access. "How long have you known about the operation?" Sokolov asked. "Since you applied for the photographer credentials," Yul replied. "American entertainment industry security isn't as casual as it appears, Viktor. Some of us who work in it have other interests that require vigilance against exactly the kind of operation you were attempting." The revelation that his cover had been blown before the mission even began was devastating, because it suggested intelligence capabilities that Moscow hadn't anticipated or prepared for. Sokolov realized that he had been operating inside an enemy-controlled environment from the very beginning. "I'll need time to arrange extraction," Sokolov said finally, accepting the inevitable failure of his mission. "You have until sunrise," Yul replied immediately. "After that, your presence in Los Angeles becomes a problem that requires permanent solutions, rather than diplomatic ones." He moved toward the door, pausing only to deliver his final message. "Tell your controllers in Moscow that Hollywood remembers its friends and punishes its enemies with equal thoroughness. Some stages are bigger than others, Viktor, but every performance has an audience that judges the quality of what they see." By the time the sun rose over Los Angeles, Suite 64 at the Chateau Marmont was empty, except for expensive furniture and the lingering scent of expensive cigarettes. Viktor Sokolov had vanished, as completely as if he had never existed, his mission abandoned, and his presence in America erased from official and unofficial records alike. Senator Harper attended the Lawrence of Arabia premiere without incident, surrounded by Hollywood celebrities who never knew how close they had come to witnessing an international incident that could have triggered diplomatic crises between nuclear powers. Years later, when Soviet archives were finally opened following the collapse of the communist system, researchers would find cryptic references to a failed operation in Los Angeles during 1961, terminated due to unforeseen security complications that were never fully explained in surviving documentation. The file designation MONARCH-7 remained classified at levels that suggested involvement by intelligence assets whose identities were considered too sensitive for normal oversight procedures. Some secrets are preserved not because they're shameful, but because they reveal capabilities that enemies shouldn't understand and allies shouldn't question. In Hollywood's golden age, where image mattered more than reality, Yul Brynner understood that protecting American interests sometimes required performances that no audience would ever see, roles that no critic would ever review, and skills that no biography would ever acknowledge. Some actors play heroes on screen, others become them when cameras stop rolling, and real threats emerge from shadows, where freedom's enemies gather to plan America's destruction.